Hey everyone, this is Mike, and today I'm going to hopefully be answering some questions that I get asked kind of frequently about my hotbar layout, my keybinds, and then also the control setup that I use, as in, do I just play with the keyboard and mouse? Do I have an MMO mouse? Should I buy one? And then also, can I be a high-end raider while using a controller? That kind of stuff I'm going to try to answer in today's video. So let's just take it one step at a time. We'll start with the control setup question, as that is the easiest one. I play using keyboard and mouse while also having an MMO mouse, and I've had a lot of people asking if they should just go buy one themselves, but to me it all comes down to personal preference. I like the mouse because it allows me extra buttons that I can use for my hotkeys, and it also separates the action buttons from the movement buttons, or at least for the most part. I can always have my fingers on my movement keys, and then I just use my pinky and my thumb to press the modifier keys Ctrl, Alt and Shift to go through my different hotbars. But just because that is what is comfortable for me doesn't mean that it will be for everyone, and you also don't need a setup like this to be a high-end raider. I know plenty of people that use a controller or even play keyboard only, and they're also high-end raiders. So for those that are wondering if you need to learn keyboard and mouse instead of playing with a controller because you want to try Ultimate or something, then you really don't have to. One thing that I do want to mention is that for some mechanics, using a controller could be a bit trickier than using mouse and keyboard, and that is because of the camera turn speed. Now, I'm not sure if this was just my friend's camera speed being set too slow, but it was something that I did notice. If you can turn up the camera speed, then I think it would be just fine. So that brings us to the hotbar layout and my keybinds. Because I use an MMO mouse, all of the action buttons that I'm going to be pressing are on the mouse itself, and I have 12 buttons on there, so I can make use of all of those 12 buttons. Although I do try to have most of my keybinds on the first 6 numbers, because those are the most comfortable for me to press. But I have all 12, so I can use them if I need the extra buttons. Now, on top of having all of these buttons on my mouse, I also use 4 hotbars, and then I use Ctrl, Alt and Shift to get access to the 3 that aren't the base hotbar. This allows me to have way more hotbar space than I'll ever realistically need, so I can shove most of my skills onto the buttons that are most comfortable for me to press. And then when I'm not in combat, I can also use a lot of the other keyboard buttons to act like shortcuts to get into certain menus of the game. So it's the best of both worlds. Combat is very comfy because I don't need to do any weird movements with my hand to be able to reach all the buttons, and I'll also always have access to my movement buttons. And then when I'm outside of combat, I'll have a bunch of hotkeys that act like shortcuts, so I don't have to go through a bunch of menus to get to everywhere where I need to get access to, like my character window or whatever else I might need access to at that time. Now, of course, as I mentioned before, this is just my preference and what I got used to. If you've been playing with keyboard and mouse or with a controller for months or even years at this point, then switching to an MMO mouse setup isn't going to just magically make you a better player. On the contrary, you'll probably be a worse player for a little while until you get used to the new control scheme. But if you feel like what you're using right now isn't comfortable enough for you and you're looking for something else to try, then you can always do that. Give it a try and see how it feels for you. I used to play with keyboard and mouse for a very long time, but I found hitting all of the buttons with my left hand very uncomfortable, so that's why I decided to try an MMO mouse. And while it felt really weird at first, eventually I did get used to it, and now I don't think I'd ever be able to play without one. And if you're someone that uses a controller, then you don't have to worry about it not being a viable control setup for high-end raiding or whatever it might be, because a controller is just fine. It's all about what works for you and what you feel is the best. So hopefully that answered some of the questions that you might have had surrounding the subject. If you have any more, then you're always free to leave a comment down below. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.